tell the truth. Let's base our understanding on fact. Let's base our understanding on what, as much as we can uncover, what actually happened at that particular time.
You know, I also want to encourage African Americans who talk to other African Americans about this history, because we need to learn our own history, so that, you know, before we can get into a fight with somebody else about, you know, what happened or what didn't happen, we need to know ourselves. And so a lot of times the conversation about race may not necessarily be between a black person and a white person, or a black person and another minority. It is between us, and we've got to know the correct history. We have another question from the audience.
Hi, my name is Kendall Crawford. I was born and raised here in Hampton Roads, grew up in Hampton. I'm the director of Virginia Interfaith Power and Light, so we work to make sure that we are moving towards environmental justice, you know, clean air, clean water, safe and stable climate, and access to land. So my question is, when slavery ended, there was a promise made for 40 acres and a mule. And it seems like, I'm not a history professor, but it does seem like some slave owners were compensated. So I'd like to know what your opinions are on reparations, especially Dr. Ruby Alexander. Thank you.
We
only got 10 minutes left, okay?
I have a very long period of time been in favor of reparations, but not in terms of paying an individual, because I think it's like the indentured servitude. You know, when they had head rights, which was that once you finish your years of service, you got land, because land doesn't go away. Unless it goes into a sinkhole. Land stays with you. Whereas if you give somebody money, that can be spent and you have nothing left after that. And so I'm in favor of reparations that will go and make sure that the schools, for example, are at par, so that we have the best schools, and especially in the communities of color that have historically been oppressed, that historically have been impoverished. We need the best teachers in those areas. We need to bring us up to an equitable level, because we still have a lot of inequity. When I look at a lot of the schools that are 70, 80, 90% African American or Hispanic, for that matter, those schools were built in the 1940s and 50s. Right. Those schools are completely inadequate today, and I don't care what kind of renovation you have. So I'm supportive of community centers. I'm supportive of making sure that people who are at that middle class level and below, that their children do not, and the parents do not have to pay for college tuition, that their children are being given the same amount of opportunity that many groups have had for centuries. And I'm also in favor of not only cutting out all this redlining that goes on, but also making sure that young entrepreneurs, older entrepreneurs who are African American, who get turned down all the time for business loans, have a pot of money to pull from, as well as financial education as to how to set up a business, how to operate that business. So to me, there are lots of opportunities for reparations. And when General Sherman made that declaration of 40 acres and a mule, people forget that African Americans in this area and other places throughout the South that were occupied by the Union government paid money for land that was abandoned by the Confederates. And when Andrew Johnson came into office, he restored that land to the white Confederates without compensating the blacks for what they paid for that land. So and that was before the 13th Amendment was passed. So, it was right after the 13th Amendment was passed. So we really have to see, the larger spectrum, because we have such an ignorance about the past, because of how the basic narratives have been constructed for the general population to consume, that we really don't know. And I'm an advocate that Black history is American history, because when you think about the things that define us the most, or hey, in the South we have Black cuisine, African American cuisine, and we have Southern cuisine. Let me ask you, what is the difference? But you know, Southern cuisine has been food that has been appropriated from African Americans and cast as white Southern food when it is actually African American cuisine.
Yes, go ahead, Lisa. You have another question?
Bailey from Portsmouth, and hello
Hi, Sherry.
to Terry.
Hi, Sherry
Hello,
Bailey.
everyone.
And she's a superstar.
Yes, she is.
I wanted to let folks know that we have a replica of the boat that was used by the Contraband 3 in 1861, and tomorrow we will bring it down here to the this area here and have you have an opportunity to see what it looked like. Because those three men were the ones who initiated freedom for all enslaved people by what they did, their actions. They got a rowboat in Norfolk, came across the water, and went into the Union camp and asked Butler for asylum. They may not have used that word, but that's what they did. And that was the beginning of freedom. That was on May 23rd, 1861. And by June 8th, you had dozens and hundreds of people showing up here claiming citizenship for American citizenship. And these were African American folks. So this is the amazing history that we have here. And we are really fortunate to have Terry Brown and Cassandra Newby Alexander as stewards of what we are learning about what this history is here. And this is like a profound opportunity for America to refocus and to reconstruct and do what we were starting off to do in 1776, which is like freedom for all. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So, Terry, a lot going on. Is there a cost? Is there a fee for people? Or can people just come?
It's about $1,000 per person. No, it's absolutely free. We wouldn't charge you a dime for this. We're honored to host this for you, and I speak for the state of Virginia, the Fort Monroe Authority, the city of Hampton, of course, the National Park Service. And what I want you to walk away with is, I want you to be a better person than when you arrived here. I want you to leave here inspired to make this country a lot better. We've had a tough history. It really is tough, but it's not the end. And just appreciate African American contributions. That's all I'm asking for. I love this fort. I love the people of this community, and I'm very proud of what we're doing here. Good job.
You know, Cassandra, one of our most popular shows is when we do these history shows. There's a hunger for understanding.
I agree, even though I always say, oh, people don't want to hear the history, but they really do want to hear the history. They just don't want to hear it droned on. They don't want it as a lecture. They want a conversation,
Right.
and they want the connections to be made. It's just like, Terry talked about some of his ancestry coming from the Cameroons. If your family has been from Virginia, especially this region, or Eastern North Carolina, more than likely, your family is from that region of the Cameroons and West Central Africa, and that's the area we're talking about these first Africans came from. So that means that you may actually be a descendant of some of those individuals who came to Virginia in the 17th century. And by the way, I also have ancestry from that region.
Really? Look at that. That's why we're sitting here
Okay,
together.
we're going to try to get one more question in before we have to go.
I just want to say that
We can't hear.
I have a guest here.
The lady with the mic?
Hi. I wanted to, the moderator said about reparation, the definition of reparations in.
Okay, I believe she was asking about reparations. Oh, okay. Apparently the mic is too far in the back, so that's why it's not picking up. You were asking about the definition of reparations?
So what I'm saying is reparations in our time has been defined as monetary. So far, reparations paid to, say, Japanese, reparations paid to the Indians, reparations paid to the Italians.
We're almost out of
These
time,
were
ma'am.
monetary reparations. They were not given to them in school improvements and and that kind of stuff. When we say reparations means to repair. And if you can't define how we are repaired, black people have to define how they are repaired.
Right, and the question was, how did I see reparations? And of course, when you talk about Native Americans, it was to their collective.
Okay. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, we are just about out of time. The hour has flown by. And so, Terry, I want to say thank you so much for joining us, and you too, Dr. Cassandra Levy Alexander and Terry Brown. And thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon with us. If you'd like to hear this show again or share it with a friend, visit our website, anotherviewradio.org, and download the podcast. Sign up for our eView newsletter. It's a once-a-week reminder of upcoming shows. Check us out on Facebook, and you can find me on Twitter at Barbara Ham Lee. Next week on Another View, we talk about African American philanthropy, how Black people are finding innovative ways to give back to the community. Please come out to Fort Monroe this weekend. There are activities for the entire family. Come learn the history, celebrate African American heritage and culture, and join together as we all reflect on ways that we can close the racial divide in this country. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Todd Washburn is our audio engineer with some help from our good friend Victor Bowen and also Ray Lentz. Our intern is Bobby Fuller. A very special thank you to our live audience here at Fort Monroe and to all of you on the radio, including brand new listeners on Richmond's NPR member station, BPM News 88.5. Thank you everyone so much for listening.